Hello everybody. I have a book to share with you today. It's called The Cowboy and the Black-Eyed Pea by Tony Johnston, pictures by Warren Ludwig. The Cowboy and the Black-Eyed Pea. Out where coyotes serenade the moon and sagebrush graze the land, there lived a young woman of bodacious beauty. Her name was Fare Thee Well. Her daddy was fixing to leave her all his worldly goods, a fine herd of longhorns, a corral full of horses, and the biggest spread in the great state of Texas. On his deathbed, he said to Fare Thee Well, "Come and sit by my side." So she did. "Honey," he whispered, "when I'm gone and you're rich, men will flock here like flies to pralines, seeking your hand in marriage. Find a real cowboy who'll love you for yourself, not just for your long-horn herd." Sure enough, quick as you can say, set another place at the table, cowboys from hither and yon came, seeking Fare Thee Well's hand. Fare Thee Well had herself a fine problem. How could she tell a real cowboy from a fake? She thought on what course to take. Then she recalled her daddy's words. A real cowboy is known for his sensitivity. At the least touch, he'll bruise like the petals of a desert rose. Knowing that, she devised a plan. Whenever a caller came to ask for her hand, she'd slip an itty-bitty black-eyed pea beneath his saddle blanket. Then she'd send him out on the range. Should he return fresh as a Texas morning, he was a fake. A real cowboy would be sorely troubled by that pea. One day, such a caller rode in. He was tall as a tree with a mustache as big as tarnation. He wore spurs the size of tambourines. "Marry me, ma'am," he said, "and I'll run this place for you." Without delay, she put him to the test. "Just ride the range today," said Fare Thee Well. "When you return, I'll give you my reply." Then, unnoticed, she slipped an itty-bitty black-eyed pea beneath his saddle blanket. The cowboy set out, mustache a-jouncing, spurs a-jingling. All day he roamed the spread that he thought would soon be his. Then he returned fresh as a Texas morning and prideful as a rooster. "Marry me, ma'am," he said, swinging down from the saddle. "No, sir," said Fare Thee Well, "you're not a real cowboy at all." "How can you tell?" he hissed, mean as a snake. "I have my ways, adios." Well, he'd never been adiosed like that before. "Hogs," he roared, stomping his feet, "I didn't want to marry you anyhow." And he cut on out of there. Come daylight, another caller appeared, bristling with pistols and brag. He wore tooled leather boots, an overgrown neckerchief, and fringes galore. Real swagger clothes. "Marry me, ma'am," he said, "and I'll run this spread for you." Fare Thee Well figured he didn't know the front end of a horse from the rear. Still, she put him to the test. With the itty-bitty black-eyed pea hidden beneath his saddle, the cowboy set out, neckerchief a-flying, fringes a-flapping. At the end of the day, he returned, fresh as a Texas morning and swelled with swagger like a horned toad. "Marry me, ma'am," he said, swinging down from the saddle. "No, sir," said Fare Thee Well, "you're not a real cowboy at all." "How do you know?" He glared with a look hard as petrified grits. "I have my ways, adios." Well, he'd never been adiosed like that before. "Beans," he roared, "I didn't want to marry you anyhow." and he cut on out of there. So it was. Cowboys came and went, but none was a real cowboy, not a one. One day, a rushing rain fell down so fast it liked to float the ranch house away. In the midst of the downpour, a young man knocked at the door. Rivulets of water gushed from his boots and over the porch like quicksilver streams. They ran so hard and fast it seemed like he was the very cause of the storm. "Mind if I sit out the storm here?" he asked. He did not ask for her hand, but something about him gave her a notion. So she said, "My longhorns don't much like rain. Would you ride out and check on them, then come right on back?" "No trouble at all," said the cowboy. While he was pouring the rain from his hat, Fare Thee Well tucked the itty-bitty black-eyed pea under his saddle blanket. Scarcely had the cowboy reached the fence when the pea commenced to work at him. He touched the reins and headed back. He swung down and checked the saddle. Something was almighty wrong with it, but he couldn't figure what. "Ma'am," he called to Fare Thee Well, "I believe I need another saddle blanket." Fare Thee Well fetched another blanket. He piled it on top of the first one. Then he set out once more. As he rode along, he twisted and twitched. The saddle squeaked and creaked. Despite his squirming, he could find no comfort. So again the cowboy returned. "Ma'am," he called, "could you spare another saddle blanket? Something surely worked its way under my saddle, but I can't locate the culprit." Fare Thee Well fetched another blanket, which the cowboy piled on top of the others, and he set out once more. Time and again, he retraced his steps. Time and again, Fare Thee Well gave him more blankets till he was sitting on no fewer than 50 saddle blankets, all stacked up like flapjacks. Though the view was fine from that perch, the itty-bitty black-eyed pea was just a working and a rubbing and causing him no end of pain. The cowboy gritted his teeth against it. Though he sorely needed more blankets, he thought, "This time I'll not go back. I've got a job to do." And he rode out toward the herd. The rain kept coming down. Lightning sizzled across the sky. Then a boom of thunder spooked the longhorns something awful. They set up a fearsome bawling and cut loose like a runaway locomotive. There seemed no way to control them. The cowboy and his horse were wedged between the cattle. So of course they took off too. Ooh-wee, it was a painful ride, jolting up and down on that itty-bitty black-eyed pea. It was a dangerous ride too. Like as not, the rampaging longhorns would squash both man and horse. But the cowboy had a stroke of luck. Back at the ranch, Fare Thee Well had heard the thundering herd. Stampede, she thought, and she raced to slow it down. Right off, she saw the cowboy caught in the middle, high atop his flapjack pile of saddle blankets, unable to reach his stirrups. Even above the bawling cattle, she heard his groans of pain, all produced by that vexatious black-eyed pea. It hurt so he like to died. Fare Thee Well lit out to save him. She cut right into the running herd. "Skedaddle!" she whooped. Sure enough, those longhorns skedaddled every which way. Though the cowboy was saved, a more pitiful sight you've rarely seen. By now, he didn't look much like a real cowboy, but Fare Thee Well knew he was. "Howdy," he said, attempting to smile. "Howdy," said Fare Thee Well, "you don't look so good. Fact is, ma'am, sitting on this saddle is like setting on sheer stone." He eased down from the saddle. Fare Thee Well checked under the pile of blankets. "I declare," she cried, fetching out something not much bigger than a flea. It's nothing at all, just this itty-bitty black-eyed pea. Well, I'll be, said the cowboy. He was truly amazed. This time, Fare Thee Well never said adios, for soon they were married and they set off on a wedding trip. The stars that night were big and bright as they saddled their horses and headed out. In front of them shone a full-blown Texas moon. Behind them, a full-grown Texas mule ambled along, piled high with saddle blankets in case the need should arise. Thank you for listening. I hope you enjoyed the cowboy and the black-eyed pea.